Brooke frowned faintly but didn't interrupt now. Chloe continued. Serena's expression tightened slightly. That's another old reference. Mia nodded slowly, so they're anchoring memories in different time periods again. Chloe kept going. Totem, please don't leave me, I'm begging you. The use of the name again made the room shift subtly. No surprise, just confirmation that the writer knew him in a different version of his life. Chloe read the next line, voice quieter. I need to spend time with you. I don't like your Uncle Joey. I think he's starting to suspect something about us. Joseph would beat my ass if I ever touched you in your parents' house. Chloe carefully folded the letter down again. I don't think this is about what we thought at the beginning, she said quietly. Brooke nodded once, yeah. Serena agreed, it's not a current affairs situation. Mia exhaled slowly, it's something older than that. Chloe looked down at the paper in her hands. I think he's dealing with someone from his past, she said softly, who never really left it behind. A pause. Then Brooke added, less dramatically now. And who doesn't experience time in a normal way anymore based on how they're writing. Serena nodded, or is mixing memories and present emotions. The room stayed quiet for a moment longer, not unsettled now but thoughtful. In the kitchen doorway, Noah remained still as the conversation settled into something more grounded. Fewer rumors. Less fear. More understanding of a life that had been complicated long before any of them had started trying to interpret it. And for the first time all night, the letter didn't feel like a bomb. It felt like a history they were only just beginning to piece together. Chloe didn't read it immediately this time. Her eyes lingered on the page longer than before, as if her brain was trying to reject what it had already processed. The room had gone quiet in a different way now, no more speculation, no more branching theories, just attention sharpening into something uncomfortable and focused. Brooke noticed first, Chloe, what is it? Chloe swallowed once. Then read. Chloe kept reading, her voice quieter now. I know these feelings I have for you are wrong, shameful, and complex, but our bond is unnaturally natural. Silence followed. Not dramatic. Not reactive. Just still. Brooke exhaled slowly, okay. Mia looked down at the letter like it had changed shape in her hands. That's concerning phrasing. Serena nodded carefully. That suggests the writer is aware of inappropriateness. Chloe's fingers tightened slightly around the page. In the kitchen doorway, Noah went completely still. This time it wasn't confusion. It was clarity forming too sharply. I've known you since you were born, I need you. I found the record you wanted with your favorite song, I wrote down the lyrics. Did you ever see a dream walking? Well, I did. Did you ever hear a dream talking? Well, I did. Did you ever have a dream thrill you with, will you be mine? Oh, it's so grand and it's too divine. Did you ever see a dream dancing? Well, I did. Did you ever see a dream romancing? Well, I did. Did you ever see heaven right in your arms, saying, I love you, I do? That line didn't fit anything romantic or current or messy in the way they'd previously tried to interpret it. It wasn't about cheating. It wasn't even about misunderstanding. It pointed somewhere else entirely, somewhere that made the entire emotional framing of the letter collapse into something heavier and far more serious. Noah did not understand it at first. For years, the memory had lived in fragments, the darkness beneath Tate's bed, the sound of Tate breathing unevenly above him, the trembling hum of a melody Noah had almost forgotten. Back then, it had seemed meaningless. Just another strange moment from the night Tate collapsed onto the floor, shaking, eyes unfocused, one hand clawing desperately for the telephone. But now, Chloe holding the letter in her hands, Noah felt the truth slide coldly into place. The song. Tate had been humming the words from the letter years before the night Tate had a seizure so bad he had sucked his thumb under the bed, while dialing an unknown number before passing out. Noah's chest tightened as the realization settled over him. Tate had not been delirious, he had been trying to remember something, trying to say something, and after the seizure, after the humming stopped, Tate had called someone. Not a doctor, not family, someone else, someone connected to the calls. Why would Tate call a woman who stalked him for years, who was delusional and scared Tate? The silent telephone calls that had haunted the house for months suddenly felt different now. Noah remembered the hollow silence on the other end of the line, the faint breathing that sometimes slipped through before the caller hung up. At the time, he had thought it was nothing more than cruelty or a prank. But Tate had known that was why he called the number during the seizure, because whoever kept phoning without speaking was not a stranger at all. The melody beneath the bed had been a clue. And somehow years later, Noah had finally remembered it. Chloe spoke quietly. So, this isn't just a past relationship. Brooke didn't answer immediately. Then carefully, no. Mia's voice dropped. This is someone who knew him from childhood. Serena added, more measured but firm, and who is acknowledging a boundary violation in the language they're using. The room stayed still. Chloe looked down at the letter again, expression unsettled but steady. I don't know what I expected this to be, she said quietly, but it wasn't this. Brooke nodded once, same. Mia exhaled slowly, this is bigger than relationship drama. Serena agreed, yes, this is about a long history with blurred or unhealthy boundaries. A pause. Then Chloe gently placed the letter back on the table. I'm not going to speculate anymore, she said, I'm just going to talk to him. Brooke nodded, good. Mia added softly, with all of this context. Serena agreed, and let him explain it in his own words. In the kitchen doorway, Noah remained still as the conversation finally shifted away from the letter itself. Not toward accusation anymore. Not toward rumor. But toward something quieter and more serious. The need for clarity from the only person who actually lived through whatever this history was. Chloe stopped reading before she even finished the line this time. Her hand lowered the page slightly, like the words themselves had started to feel unsafe to hold onto. The room didn't erupt anymore, it didn't need to. Brooke was already frowning, yes, that one's not normal. Mia shook her head once, that's controlling language again. Serena's voice was quieter, more precise, and it's escalating into logistics and location planning, that's not just emotion, that's intent. Chloe exhaled slowly, looking down at the paper. It keeps trying to arrange where and how they meet. Brooke nodded, and the tone isn't healthy, it's possessive. A brief silence settled. Not the earlier confusion, this was a sharper, more grounded understanding. In the kitchen doorway, Noah stayed still, but his attention was fully locked in now. Not on a scandal. Not on rumor. On pattern. Because this wasn't a single strange message anymore. It was a consistent tone running through all of it, pressure, fixation, entitlement to access, and frustration when access was blocked. Chloe finally set the page down gently on the table. I don't think we should read any more of it, she said. No one argued. Mia nodded immediately, yeah, we've got the point. Serena agreed, continuing won't give us clarity, just more distressing detail. Brooke leaned back, exhaling. So what we actually have is someone who's been emotionally attached to Tate for a long time and doesn't seem to accept boundaries. Chloe looked up at that and keeps trying to re-establish contact. Yeah, Brooke said. A pause. Then Serena added carefully, and regardless of the history, the way it's being expressed now is not healthy. Mia folded her arms, so what do we do with this? Chloe hesitated. Then said it simply, we stop guessing, we ask him directly. That landed cleanly in the room. No more theories. No more reading between the lines. Just truth from the only person who actually lived it. Brooke nodded once, agreed. Serena followed, agreed. Mia sighed, finally. In the kitchen doorway, Noah finally shifted slightly, tension easing, not because the situation was simple, but because the group had stopped spiraling and started grounding themselves in reality again. The letter stayed on the couch. No longer the center of the conversation. Just a document they had understood enough to step away from. Tate arrived at the Blue Mansion carrying his briefcase, his expression calm and unreadable as he stepped through the front doors. The first people he saw were Chloe and her friends gathered together in the foyer, chatting and laughing among themselves as they looked up to greet his arrival. Tate didn't even pause in the doorway. The moment his eyes landed on the blue folded letter on the table, everything in his expression tightened. What is that doing out? He said immediately. Chloe stood up slowly, we need to talk about it. That was enough. Tate's body stiffened and then he crossed the room in a few quick steps and grabbed the letter straight from her hands. Not gently. The paper crumpled sharply in his fist. Brooke straightened. Hey, okay, that's. You have no fucking right to enter my bedroom, touch my things and read them to people who aren't family. How would you like it if I found your journal and started reading passages from it to all of my brown friends? What the hell was going through your head? Did you honestly think this was going to make me want to come home? Tate snapped, cutting her off mid-sentence. His voice echoed through the apartment like a warning sharp enough to silence everyone. That was private. You violated my privacy, you betrayed my trust, and you had absolutely no business asking me about any of it. Tate shook his head slowly, disbelief written across his face. Have I ever given you a reason to worry? He asked, his voice low but firm. I come home at least 6 days a week, I provide for this family, I give you an amazing life, you get to do whatever you want with your spare time, I don't ask much of you, just attend a few work meetings with me and act like you have a brain in your head when we're in public, that's it. His jaw tightened. And yet I come home to find you've been reading my personal correspondence. He let out a bitter laugh. Those letters are private. Unless I've suddenly developed a habit of sleepwalking, I'm pretty sure I never gave you permission to rifle through my drawers, my bookcases, or my briefcase. He stared at her, the hurt in his eyes far more cutting than his anger. I shouldn't even have to explain this to you. Noah has spent more time around me than almost anyone outside this family, and do you know what he's never done? Tate paused, shaking his head. He's never gone through my things, not once. He's been alone in my office, my bedroom, my apartment, and he's never opened a drawer, never searched my briefcase, never read a single letter that wasn't meant for him, because he understands something you apparently don't, privacy. Across the room, Noah stood frozen. He hadn't expected to be brought into the argument, and hearing Tate defend him caught him completely off guard. His eyes widened slightly before he looked down at the floor, swallowing hard. Quietly, almost to himself, Noah murmured, "It never even crossed my mind." He lifted his gaze toward Tate, his expression a mixture of surprise and sympathy. Your things are yours, Noah said softly. I don't have the right to touch them. I figured that was just basic respect. For a brief moment the apartment fell silent, Noah's simple statement underscoring Tate's point more powerfully than any shouting could. I have never once read your love letters or any of your personal correspondence, Tate shouted. Not once. And yet you somehow think you have the right to rifle through my things. If I wanted you to know my business, it would be sitting on the dining room table at home for everyone to read. He took another step forward, his voice rising until it echoed through the room. You remind me a lot of Derek. Noah's head snapped up. Tate's eyes never left his wife's. You both have problems with personal boundaries. Your brother doesn't understand physical boundaries. You, on the other hand, don't understand emotional or personal boundaries. You don't touch your husband's private belongings. You don't read his letters. You don't invade his privacy. His chest rose and fell with each breath as he continued. And if you still don't understand what you did wrong, maybe you can ask Talia when she gets back from the Hilton. The last sentence came out as a roar, the force of it leaving the room in stunned silence. If you had even a shred of empathy, Tate shouted, you wouldn't be touching things you don't understand. Going through my belongings is bad enough, reading my private correspondence is even worse, but telling all of your girlfriends? He let out a bitter, disbelieving laugh. That's unforgivable. He threw his hands into the air. In about 2 hours my personal business will be out around town thanks to your girlfriends, and by tomorrow everyone in Los Angeles will laugh at me. Thank you for humiliating me in advance. Thank you for making my private life into entertainment. His voice cracked with equal parts anger and hurt. I trusted you. Noah stood rooted to the spot. He had never heard Tate yell like this. The fury wasn't theatrical, it was the sound of someone who felt profoundly betrayed. Noah's shoulders sank as he looked from Tate to Chloe, realizing this wasn't about a misunderstanding anymore. It was about trust that had been broken. Chloe's face drained of color. The confidence she'd had only moments earlier evaporated as the weight of Tate's words settled over the room. Her mouth opened to respond, but nothing came out. For the first time, she seemed to recognize how deeply her actions had wounded him. Around her, the laughter was long gone. Her friends exchanged uneasy glances, suddenly wishing they were anywhere else. One lowered her eyes to the floor, another awkwardly set her drink on the counter, and a third shifted uncomfortably, realizing they had been drawn into something intensely private. No one spoke. The excitement of hearing the letters had been replaced by the uncomfortable realization that they had witnessed something they never should have. The silence stretched. Tate looked at each of them in turn, his expression hard with disappointment. Then, without another word, he turned on his heel, marched into the kitchen, and slammed the swinging door so hard it rattled in its frame. The crash echoed throughout the house. Noah flinched instinctively. No one moved. No one spoke. The only sound left was the ringing silence that followed Tate's exit. The room froze. Mia whispered, "Okay, he's really angry." Serena didn't move, but her eyes stayed fixed on him. He feels exposed. Chloe stood exactly where he had left her while her friends avoided eye contact, the awkwardness hanging over the room like a storm cloud. Noah remained off to the side, watching quietly. Tate walked back in holding a glass of lemon water, and his expression was calm now, but only on the surface. The anger hadn't disappeared, it had settled into something colder. Chloe tried to apologize, but Tate put his hand up to stop her attempt. "Don't," Tate said sharply, pointing slightly with the hand holding the letter. "Don't apologize because you think I'm overreacting." Brooke muttered under her breath, "Okay, this is going sideways fast." Mia elbowed her, "Stop narrating it." Brooke whispered back, "I can't help it." Serena spoke carefully, not raising her voice. "Tate, we're not trying to invade your privacy, but the content is concerning." Tate let out a short, humorless laugh. "Of course it is," he said, "because you decided to go through my letters instead of asking me like a normal person by obtaining my consent." Chloe stepped forward slightly. "We didn't understand what it was at first." "That's not an excuse," he shot back immediately. Silence hit the room again. Even Noah, standing near the kitchen doorway, stayed completely still now. Brooke leaned toward Mia, whispering, "Okay, he's not calming down." Mia whispered back, "Yeah, he's in full shutdown mode." Serena added quietly, "He feels violated, that's not going to resolve quickly." Chloe tried again, more gently, "We only read it because it seemed like someone was still contacting you in a way that didn't feel okay." Tate's jaw tightened again. "You don't get to decide what's okay in my life," he said. That landed hard. Chloe went quiet. Brooke exhaled slowly, "Okay, fair point, but..." Mia cut in, "Brooke." "Right," Brooke muttered, not helping. Tate took a breath, but it didn't soften anything. Instead, his gaze swept the room. "You're done here," he said flatly. No one moved immediately. Serena frowned slightly. "Tate." "I said you're done," he repeated, sharper now. "Get out." That shifted the entire room. Mia blinked. "Wait, what?" Brooke looked at Chloe quickly. Are we getting kicked out?" Chloe didn't answer right away. She was watching Tate, trying to read past the anger. But there wasn't much to read. Just closed doors. Tate pointed toward the entryway. "All of you, get out of my parents' house." A pause. Then quieter but colder. "Now." Brooke whispered, "Okay, wow." Mia shot her a look. "Stop." Brooke whispered back, "I'm not saying anything out loud." Serena didn't argue, she just nodded slightly. "We should go." Chloe hesitated. "Tate." He cut her off without looking at her. "You too." That was it. Chloe's shoulders dropped slightly. Not defeated, just recalibrating. "Okay," she said quietly. Brooke stood up first, grabbing her things. "Yeah, we should probably leave before this gets worse." Mia followed quickly, definitely leaving. Serena lingered just a second longer, looking at Tate. "We weren't trying to harm you, but shutting everyone out won't make this disappear." Tate didn't respond. He was already turning away. Chloe watched him for a moment longer, then exhaled softly and stepped back. No argument. No escalation. Just accept that this conversation was over for now. Brooke leaned toward Mia as they moved toward the door, whispering, "That went from 0 to eviction real fast." Mia whispered back, "Yeah, I did not expect that level of anger." Serena added quietly, "It wasn't anger at us, it was panic about being exposed." They reached the hallway. Behind them, inside the mansion, they heard the sharp sound of a door opening. Then Tate's voice again, lower but still tense. "I said get out." A beat. Then the bedroom door slammed. The sound echoed through the apartment like a final line drawn in the sand. Silence followed. Chloe paused at the threshold for just a second longer than the others. then stepped out. The door closed behind them. And outside in the hallway, the group stood in awkward quiet. Brooke finally broke it. Well, she said, that escalated. Mia sighed, yeah. Serena looked back at the door, we're going to have to approach this differently. Chloe didn't speak immediately. She just looked down the hallway, processing everything that had just collapsed in under a minute. Then quietly, we still don't know what it means. Brooke nodded, no, but we know he's not ready to talk about it. Mia added, at all. And behind them, inside the locked apartment, the silence Tate left behind didn't feel like resolution. It felt like a boundary slammed shut, hard enough that nobody could ignore it. Noah had never seen Tate like this. Not even close. It wasn't just anger anymore, it was containment breaking, like something that had been tightly controlled for a long time finally snapped under pressure. The door upstairs hadn't even finished echoing from the slam when the house went still again. Too still. Chloe stood near the bottom of the stairs, hesitating. Brooke called after her quietly, Chloe, don't go up there. Mia added, he just kicked us out, that's not a good idea. Chloe didn't answer right away. Serena was the only one who didn't move, watching her carefully. What are you trying to do? Chloe swallowed, I just want to understand what the hair is. That made Brooke pause, the what? From upstairs a sound came, something shifting sharply in a room. Noah stayed frozen near the kitchen doorway listening. He didn't know how it had gotten here so fast. One moment it was questions. Now it was an intrusion layered on top of another intrusion. Chloe started up the stairs anyway. Chloe, Brooke called again, sharper now, seriously don't. But she was already halfway up. Noah took a step forward instinctively, then stopped himself. He wasn't sure what he was supposed to do here. Upstairs a door opened. Tate's voice hit immediately. What are you doing up here? Chloe paused at the top step. I just want to ask you something. No, Tate said instantly, you don't get to come into my space after everything downstairs. Chloe held her ground, I didn't understand what I was seeing. That's not my problem, he snapped. Brooke's voice carried faintly from below the stairs, Chloe, please just come down. Mia added, this is getting worse. Serena didn't call up, but her silence said enough, she was listening carefully. Chloe hesitated, then stepped closer to Tate's doorway. There was a lock of hair, she said quietly. In the letter, why would someone send that? That was the moment everything changed again. Tate went still. Not calmer. Not quieter. Still in a way that made the air feel tight. Then his voice dropped. Get out of my room. Chloe didn't move. Tate. Get out. That second repetition carried weight. Chloe finally stepped back slightly. But she didn't leave immediately. Just tell me what it is, she said, softer now, so I stopped guessing. That was the wrong angle. Tate's composure cracked again. You went through my things, he said, voice rising. You read my private correspondence, you came upstairs after I told you to leave, and now you're standing in my room asking questions as if I owe you explanations. Chloe flinched slightly, I didn't mean. I don't have to tell you everything, you're just my wife, not my priest, you don't get to decide what your nosiness meant anymore, he cut in. Downstairs Mia whispered, oh no. Brooke whispered back, this is really bad. Serena finally spoke quietly to them both, he's overwhelmed and feeling completely violated. Noah stood in the doorway below, tension tightening again in his chest. Upstairs Chloe tried once more. I'm not trying to control you, she said, I just. Tate stepped forward sharply. Leave, he said. Chloe finally stopped. A beat. Then she nodded once. Okay. She turned and began to descend the stairs. From below, Brooke immediately moved toward her. Goods, thank you. Mia exhaled in relief. Okay, let's just go. But the moment Chloe reached the bottom step, Tate's voice cut through the house again. Lower now. Strained. You don't understand what you're touching. That stopped Chloe for half a second. But she didn't turn back. She just kept walking. Brooke leaned toward her as they moved toward the door. We need to back off, seriously. Mia nodded quickly, yeah, we pushed too far. Serena followed behind them, quieter than the rest. But there is something there, just not something we can access like this. Noah lingered near the kitchen, watching the group leave, the weight of everything settling unevenly in the house. Tate didn't come back down. The upstairs door stayed closed, and the silence that remained after they left wasn't resolution. It was a distance. Hard, deliberate distance. The kind that meant whatever came next would have to be handled differently, because pushing harder wasn't going to get them answers anymore. Only more closed doors. Tate didn't get over Chloe's violation of his privacy. Tate destroyed his entire room with a bat. Noah and Chloe were out of the house when it happened, but when they returned a few hours later, there were shards of wood, plastic, and smashed things all over Tate's room. Even after a few days, the house still felt different, quieter in a way that wasn't calm, just closed off. Noah noticed it first in the small things. Tate did not linger in shared spaces, had shorter responses, and the way conversations ended faster than they used to. It wasn't just anger anymore. It was a distance. Noah remembered the letter again, not as something he was reading for the first time, but as something his mind kept circling back to, like it had always been there, waiting for him to understand it. A different birthday, a different secluded place where we parked. Your hands are on me again. Again. The word felt heavier each time he returned to it, as if it were not just describing repetition but insisting on it. A few years earlier, Tate had spoken about the affair with the teacher in a way that had seemed almost dismissive. One mistake, one moment, something isolated enough to tuck away and never reopen. It happened once, Tate had said, voice flat, eyes unfocused, like he was trying to compress an entire part of his life into something small enough to survive. Noah had almost accepted that version of events. It had sounded like the kind of truth someone tells when they cannot bear the shape of the whole story. But the letter refused to behave like a single mistake. It stretched time instead. Birthdays repeated across years. Meetings not in hotel rooms or places that could be easily named and categorized, but in private places where they parked, car interiors fogging up in winter, quiet streets with no witnesses, headlights turned off so no one would notice how long they stayed. The intimacy described in the letter was not incidental or brief. It carried the weight of familiarity, of something rehearsed and returned to again and again, until it became its own hidden routine. Unless Noah thought uneasily the person writing it was not the female teacher at all. That possibility made everything worse, not better. Tate had always been strangely inconsistent when the teacher came up. He never described her clearly, never anchored her in time. His sentences drifted around her like he was trying to avoid stepping on something fragile. At first, Noah had thought it was shame or denial or simply the awkwardness of someone recalling a mistake they wished had never happened. Now it felt less like avoidance and more like fragmentation, like Tate was holding pieces that didn't fit together anymore. The seizures had changed him over the years in ways no one talked about directly. Memory didn't just disappear, it broke, it scattered. Sometimes it returned wrong, stitched into the wrong context, attached to the wrong emotion. A face could belong to the wrong year. A conversation could arrive attached to someone else entirely. Tate had described it once as remembering things that feel real even when they don't belong to me. And at the time, Noah had not known what to do with that. Now he wondered if that was the key to everything. Maybe Tate wasn't lying when he said it happened once. Maybe that was the only version of the story he could still hold without everything collapsing. Or maybe the opposite was true. Maybe once was what his mind had reduced something far more complicated into, a defense mechanism built from missing pieces. Or maybe he was lying because telling the truth meant numbing someone he couldn't afford to name. Because the other thread would not leave Noah alone either, the silent phone calls. The memory returned with uncomfortable clarity. The telephone is sitting on the counter. The first time it rang with no voice on the other end. The second time, the pattern that should have become familiar but never did. Always silence, always breathing that might have been real or imagined, always the sense that someone was waiting for recognition rather than conversation. And then Tate, that night, the night of the seizure, stumbling under the bed, humming a tune Noah hadn't thought about for years. A melody that now, impossibly, matched the words in the letter. Not random. Not meaningless. A fragment of something shared. Tate had reached for the phone during that episode with urgency that had not felt like confusion. It had felt like recognition, like he knew who was on the other end even if he could not explain it out loud. Like the silence itself was part of a language only he and the caller understood. Noah felt the pieces sliding closer together, not resolving yet, but aligning in a way that made his stomach tight. The birthdays in the letter. The repeated again. The parked car secrecy instead of named places. The vague, inconsistent story about the teacher. The silent calls that never ended in words. The humming under the bed was like a message that had outlived its meaning. Each piece on its own could be explained away: stress, shame, memory gaps, miscommunication, even cruelty from an unknown caller. But together they refused to stay separate. Noah looked at the phone in the kitchen again, its surface dark and motionless, and for the first time he wondered if the silence was not absence at all. Maybe it was restraint. Maybe someone had been waiting all along for the moment someone finally remembered enough to answer properly. Tate's room was dim even in the daytime, curtains drawn halfway as if the light itself was something he didn't fully trust. A stack of folded clothes sat on the chair in the corner. The bed was unmade, sheets twisted like they had been pulled at in restless sleep rather than rest. Noah stood near the door for a moment longer than he meant to, the letter still heavy in his thoughts as if it had weight beyond paper. Tate was sitting on the edge of the bed, elbows resting on his knees, staring at nothing in particular. Noah stepped inside. "I need to ask you something," Noah said quietly. Tate didn't look up right away. "You already have a tone, that usually means I'm not going to like it." Noah ignored that. He held the letter in his hand but didn't raise it yet. "You told me the thing with the teacher was one time." Tate's eyes flicked up at that, guarded but not surprised. "Yeah." Noah hesitated, then finally spoke it. "Then why does this make it sound like it happened multiple times?" That got Tate's full attention. He straightened slightly, his expression tightening as Noah lifted the letter enough for him to see the lines Noah meant. For a moment neither of them spoke. Then Tate exhaled slowly, like he already knew this was coming and had just been delaying it in his own mind. "I don't remember it like that," he said. Noah frowned. "What do you mean, you don't remember it like that?" Tate looked down at his hands. "I mean, I don't trust my memory on it." "That's not an answer," Noah said, sharper than he intended. Tate flinched slightly at the tone but didn't argue. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter. "I thought it was once," he admitted. "That's what I've believed, that's what I've been holding onto." Noah studied him carefully, but the letter says otherwise. It's specific, different birthdays, different places, not just one moment. Tate swallowed. "I know what it says." Silence stretched between them, thick and uncomfortable. The room felt smaller with every second. Noah stepped further in. "So which is it, Tate?" Tate rubbed a hand over his face, exhaling through his fingers. "I don't know." That answer landed harder than anything else. Noah blinked. "You don't know." Tate dropped his hand and finally met Noah's eyes. "My memory isn't reliable in the way you think it is, you know that. The seizures," he paused, searching for the right words, then gave up slightly. "Things don't stay whole, they don't stay in order. Sometimes I remember something and it feels real, but later I can't tell if it actually happened that way or if my brain just filled in gaps." Noah felt something cold settle in his chest. "So you might have had more than one encounter with her and just don't remember it." Tate didn't answer immediately. That hesitation was enough. "I might have," Tate said finally, "or I might not have. I honestly don't know anymore." Noah stared at him, trying to reconcile that with everything else: the letter, the pattern, the repeated birthdays, the intimacy described like something familiar rather than accidental. "But you told me it was one time," Noah said. "I believed that," Tate replied, voice strained. "I still think that's what I remember, but I also know my memory can't be trusted to hold everything correctly. It rearranges things, it leaves things out, it simplifies them." Noah looked down at the letter again. "So this could all be wrong," he said, almost to himself. Tate shook his head slightly. "Not wrong, just incomplete." That word hung in the air longer than either of them seemed comfortable with. Noah finally sat down in the chair across from the bed, elbows on his knees, mirroring Tate's posture from moments before. "Then what do I do with this?" he asked. "With any of it, the calls, the song, this letter?" Tate's expression tightened again. "I don't know." The honesty wasn't comforting, it wasn't even reassuring, it just made everything feel more unstable. Noah studied him for a long moment, then asked the question he didn't fully want the answer to. "Do you think you're lying to me, or do you think you're lying to yourself?" Tate didn't answer right away. His eyes dropped to the floor, then drifted toward the window like he was trying to find something solid to anchor to. I think, Tate said slowly, that there are parts of my life I can't access properly anymore, and I think someone else might remember them better than I do. That sentence settled in the room like a weight neither of them knew how to lift. Tate stayed sitting on the edge of the bed, shoulders slightly hunched now, like the conversation had begun to press down on him physically. Noah didn't move from the chair. For a while, neither of them spoke. The silence wasn't empty, it was layered, like both of them were waiting for the other to decide whether the truth was something worth continuing to dig up. Finally, Tate exhaled. "It isn't a pleasant memory for me," he said quietly. Noah's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes sharpened slightly. He didn't interrupt. Tate kept his gaze lowered. "Even thinking about it, even trying to line it up properly in my head, it doesn't come back cleanly, it comes back fragmented, stressful, confusing, and I've spent years trying not to sit inside it longer than I have to." Noah glanced at the letter still in his hand. "So you avoid it." "I protect myself from it," Tate corrected, but there was no sharpness in it. "Just exhaustion, there's a difference." Noah leaned forward slightly. "The difference is whether it's true or not." Tate finally looked up at that. "No, the difference is whether I survive thinking about it or not." That landed heavier than Noah expected. Tate rubbed his thumb against the edge of his palm, a small repetitive motion like grounding himself. "You have to understand something," he continued. "With the seizures, with the memory loss, things don't just get harder to recall, they get unstable. A single event doesn't stay in one shape, it can feel like one thing one day and something slightly different the next. And if you sit with it too long, your brain starts filling in gaps just so it makes sense." Noah listened but didn't soften. "So you're saying you might have invented parts of your own life without realizing it?" Tate gave a short, humorless breath. "I'm saying I don't always know what's been altered and what hasn't, that's all." Noah looked down at the letter again. "But this," he said, tapping it lightly, "this doesn't read like something invented, it's specific, repeated birthdays, different places, it has structure." Tate shook his head slightly. "Or it reads like someone else's memory of me." Noah paused. That was the first time Tate had said it like that. Noah studied him carefully. "You think the letter might be wrong?" "I think I don't know," Tate replied immediately, "and I'm not pretending otherwise anymore." He leaned back slightly against the wall behind him as if the bed wasn't enough support. "You're looking at this like it's a puzzle that has a single correct solution, like there's a clean answer somewhere in here. There isn't, not for me." Noah stayed quiet, but his eyes didn't leave Tate. Tate continued, slower now. "I told you what I remember. I told you I thought it was one time. That's not me lying to you, that's me telling you what I have access to. If there's more, if there's less, if it's distorted, I don't have a way to verify it anymore." He swallowed, "And honestly, I don't want to." Noah frowned slightly. "Why?" Tate's jaw tightened. "Because it's not relevant anymore." That sentence sat oddly in the room. Noah blinked. "Not relevant." Tate nodded once. "She's not in my life, she hasn't been for a long time, there are no calls, no contact, whatever that was, whatever it actually was, it's over." Noah felt something shift inside him. "That's it, that's your conclusion." Tate's eyes flicked up, tired now rather than defensive. "What do you want from me, Noah?" Noah didn't answer immediately. Tate gestured faintly toward the letter. "Do you want me to reconstruct something I can't reliably reconstruct? Do you want me to sit here and build a version of events that satisfies every detail in that paper? Because I can't do that, I won't pretend I can." He leaned forward slightly now, voice lower but firmer. "And even if I could, why would I? The person you're talking about, the teacher, whoever she was to me, isn't in my life anymore. She isn't calling, she isn't stalking me. Whatever happened, it's not actively affecting anything right now." Noah's expression tightened. "That doesn't mean it didn't happen." "I didn't say it didn't happen," Tate said sharply, then exhaled again, forcing his tone down. "I said I don't know how it happened, or how many times, or what details belong where." A pause. Then quieter. "And I don't see what the point is in reopening it." Noah leaned back in the chair slowly, absorbing that. For a moment he didn't speak. When he did, his voice was calmer but more precise. "The point," Noah said, "is that the story doesn't match." Tate gave a small, tired look. "Then maybe the story isn't one story." That silence returned, heavier this time. Noah looked at him for a long moment. When he finally spoke again, it wasn't an accusation. It was something more careful. I don't think you're lying, Noah said. Tate didn't react immediately. Noah continued, quieter, but I also don't think you're a reliable narrator of your own life right now. That phrase made Tate exhale through his nose, almost like a defeated acknowledgement. I know, Tate said simply. Noah's gaze didn't soften, and that's the problem. Tate tilted his head slightly. Why is it a problem? I'm not actively involved in whatever that was anymore. You just said it yourself. You don't think I'm lying, so what exactly are we trying to fix? Tate's jaw tightened as he stared at Noah. Everyone I know, he said coldly, keeps wanting to know things that aren't their business. Just because you picked up the phone doesn't mean it's your business to know who was calling or why. He folded his arms across his chest. I picked up a call or two from Mark over the years. You know what I did? I answered the phone, told him you weren't available, or handed it to you. I didn't interrogate you. I didn't ask what he wanted. Maybe it wasn't my business. His voice hardened. Not every conversation is an invitation. Not every ringing phone comes with an explanation you deserve. Sometimes people are entitled to privacy. Tate took a slow step toward Noah, his expression unreadable. So stop asking, stop digging, stop acting like you're owed every answer just because you happen to answer a phone. A long silence hung between them. Maybe it's none of your business. He pointed toward the front door. And maybe, he said quietly, you need to leave. The words landed like a slap. Noah's face drained of color. He stared at Tate for several seconds as if waiting for him to admit it was a cruel joke, but Tate's expression never changed. His throat tightened. You want me to leave? Tate said nothing. Noah swallowed hard, blinking rapidly as tears welled in his eyes. He nodded once, more to himself than to Tate. I wasn't trying to invade your privacy, he said, his voice cracking. I answered the phone because it was ringing. I asked because I care about you. Another painful silence. I guess that doesn't matter. He looked toward the floor, rubbing at his eyes with the heel of his hand before forcing a hollow laugh. I keep getting it wrong with you, don't I? Noah reached for his jacket with trembling hands. Tate looked away for a moment, his expression hardening as if he was trying to convince himself more than Noah. I don't know why I'm explaining anything to you, Tate said quietly. I don't owe you an explanation. He looked back at Noah. I'm the rich man here. I built my life. I made my choices. I don't have to justify myself to anyone. Noah flinched slightly at the words, the distance in Tate's voice hurting more than the anger. Tate shook his head. You're not even in my life anymore, Noah, so honestly I don't see the point of this conversation. The room went silent. Noah stared at him, trying to process the finality behind those words. Not in your life, Noah repeated softly. Tate didn't answer. Noah gave a small, disbelieving nod. That's what you think this is. His voice trembled, but he tried to keep it steady. Noah tried to explain. I wasn't asking because I thought I owned you. I wasn't asking because I thought I was entitled to every part of you. I asked because I thought... He stopped, swallowing the rest of the sentence. Never mind. He stepped back, his expression falling. If that's really how you see me, then I guess there's nothing left to say. Noah turned toward the door, but before leaving, he looked back one last time. I hope someday you remember that there was a time when I mattered to you. He hesitated at the door, hopping, just once, that Tate would tell him to stay. When no words came, Noah opened the door, stepped outside, and quietly closed it behind him. The phone call still lingered in the back of Noah's mind, the humming under the bed, the sense that something had been unfinished long before any of this conversation began. But saying that out loud felt like stepping into something neither of them fully understood. The next day, Noah checked on Tate in his bedroom. Noah hesitated. Tate. No response at first. Then finally, Tate spoke without turning his head. Don't. That was all. Noah stayed in the doorway. I just wanted to check on you. A pause. Tate let out a slow breath. I'm fine. But he didn't look fine. Noah shifted slightly. Chloe tried to apologize. That got a reaction, but not a soft one. Tate's jaw tightened. I don't want to hear it, he said. Noah nodded slowly. Okay. He didn't push further. A beat of silence passed. Then Tate stood up, finally turning toward the door. "Just leave me alone," he said, sharper now. Noah stepped back immediately. "All right." He left the doorway but didn't go far. Because even from downstairs later, it was obvious nothing had fully reset. Chloe tried again that evening. She waited until Tate came out of his room briefly, standing in the hallway. "Tate," she said gently, "can I talk to you for a second?" He stopped but didn't face her fully. "I already said no," he replied flatly. Chloe hesitated. "I didn't mean to cross a line, I was worried and I handled it wrong." Tate finally looked at her then. Not angry in an explosive way anymore. Just closed off. "I need you to respect that I don't want you in my space," he said. Chloe nodded. "I will." A pause. Then she added softly, "I'm sorry." Tate didn't respond. He just turned away and went back into his room, closing the door behind him. Not slammed. Just final. Downstairs, Mia whispered, "Yeah, this is going to take a while." Brooke nodded. "He's not processing it yet." Serena added quietly, "And she's trying to fix something that needs time." Noah stood near the kitchen, listening to the house settle again. Not into chaos, but into distance. And this time it wasn't loud. It was just there between them all. The house felt like it had settled into an uneasy truce. Not repaired, just quieter. Chloe kept her distance. Brooke and Mia had stopped bringing up the letter entirely. Serena, when she came by, spoke less about what it meant and more about letting things breathe. And Tate stayed mostly behind his door. Noah noticed the pattern forming. Meals happened without him. Footsteps upstairs came and went without interaction. The house functioned, but it didn't feel shared anymore. That afternoon, Noah made a decision. He called Susie and Andrew. When they arrived, it immediately shifted the energy again, like fresh air being pushed into a sealed room. Susie showed up first, talking before she even fully stepped inside. "Okay, I already know this is going to be dramatic," she said, kicking off her shoes. "You never call us unless it's weird." Andrew followed behind her, glancing around. "Define weird." Noah gave a small shrug. "Just needed normal people energy in the house." Susie narrowed her eyes. "That sounds like damage control." Andrew looked up the stairs. "What's the situation?" Noah hesitated. "Tate's here, he's just been in his room a lot." Susie immediately clocked the tone. "Uh-oh." Andrew lowered his voice. "Is he mad at you?" "Not me," Noah said. "It's complicated." That was enough for both of them. Susie leaned back on the couch. "So, we're doing emotional buffering." "Basically," Noah said. Upstairs, a door remained closed. Tate didn't come out. But he heard them. He heard new voices, movement, laughter that didn't belong to the last week. And he stayed where he was. Inside his room. Quiet. Still. Not engaging. Downstairs, Susie glanced toward the ceiling. "He's really hiding out, huh?" Noah nodded. "Yeah." Andrew leaned against the counter. "Did something happen?" Noah paused. A beat too long. Then someone went through his stuff. It blew up. Susie made a face. "Yeah, that'll do it." Andrew exhaled. "So a trust issue." Noah nodded slightly. "Pretty much." They didn't push for details. They just stayed. That was the point. Susie started talking about something random, work, a stupid story, anything to keep the space from going too quiet. Andrew added jokes, light commentary, filling the room with normalcy that didn't demand anything from anyone. And slowly the house shifted again. Not healed, but less sharp. Upstairs, Tate stayed in his room the entire time. He didn't come down. He didn't join. But for the first time in days, the silence in the house wasn't entirely empty. It had other people inside it now. Chloe didn't mean to bring it up. At first, she just sat with them in the living room, listening to Susie and Andrew talk around her. A normal, easy conversation, the kind that didn't require decoding anything or second-guessing tone. Susie was mid-story about something ridiculous from work, laughing at her own punchline. Chloe gave a small, distracted smile. Noah noticed at first that she wasn't really there with them. She was somewhere else entirely. Susie leaned forward slightly. "Okay, what's going on with you? You've been quiet since we got here." Andrew glanced at her too. "Yeah, you look like you're thinking too hard." Chloe hesitated. Then she exhaled slowly. I need to tell you something, she said. That immediately shifted the tone. Susie blinked. Oh, okay. Andrew sat up a bit. Is this a bad news kind of thing? Chloe shook her head slightly. Not exactly, I don't know. Noah stayed quiet nearby, watching her carefully. Chloe folded her hands together. It's about Tate, she said. That got both of them focused instantly. Susie's expression softened. Okay. Andrew nodded once. Go on. Chloe paused like she was deciding how far back to start. Then she said, we found a letter. Susie frowned. A letter. Yeah, Chloe continued. In his things it was a long letter from someone who clearly knows him. Andrew tilted his head, like an X. That's what we thought at first, Chloe said, but it wasn't that simple. Susie glanced toward the stairs. Is this why he's been locked in his room? Chloe nodded. Noah shifted slightly but didn't interrupt. Chloe continued more carefully now. It wasn't just emotional stuff, it referenced years, different times in his life, family members, things we didn't understand. Andrew's expression tightened. Okay, that's weird. Susie leaned forward, like stalker weird. Chloe hesitated. That's what it started to feel like. Silence settled for a moment. Andrew exhaled. Did you show it to him? Chloe nodded slowly. We tried to talk to him about it. He got really angry. Susie made a face. Yeah, I can see that. Chloe's voice softened. We went too far. We read it before asking him. He felt violated. That part landed differently. Andrew nodded slowly. Okay, yeah, that's understandable. Susie frowned. But what did the letter actually say? Chloe hesitated again. Noah noticed her choice carefully. She wasn't trying to dramatize it now. Just explain it. There were references to knowing him since he was very young, she said carefully, and long-term emotional attachment. Andrew's eyebrows rose slightly. That's not an X, that's history. Chloe nodded. Exactly. She paused, then added more quietly. And it didn't sound healthy, it sounded like someone who hasn't been able to let go. Silence again. This one is heavier. Susie leaned back slowly. Okay, yeah, I get why that would freak you out. Andrew nodded, but I also get why he would shut down over you reading it. Chloe nodded faintly. I know, I apologized. Noah spoke for the first time quietly. He hasn't really come out of his room since. Susie glanced up the stairs again. So he's just processing it alone. Yeah, Noah said. Andrew exhaled. That's rough. Chloe looked down at her hands. I didn't know what else to do with it. It felt like something was wrong, but I also didn't want to make it worse. Susie's tone softened. You were trying to help, you just did it in a way that crossed a line. Chloe nodded once. Yeah. A pause. Then Andrew said carefully, so what now? No one answered immediately. Because that was the real question. Finally Susie said, now you give him space, and when he's ready he talks, not before. Chloe looked toward the stairs. Quiet. Still. Andrew added, and maybe don't investigate his private stuff again. Andrew was shaking his head. That relationship in his letter sounds illegal, actually. Chloe gave a small, tired exhale. Definitely not doing that again. Noah stayed quiet, listening to the house again settle into something new. Not fixed. Not resolved. But slightly more understood than before. By the time the house quieted down for the night, it didn't feel resolved, just exhausted. Susie and Andrew had eventually left, sensing they were more in the middle of something than helping it. Noah stayed up later than he meant to. Chloe went to her room early, saying almost nothing. Tate didn't come down at all. And sometime after 2 a.m. his door opened. Quietly. Carefully. Like someone trying not to be remembered, leaving. Noah heard it from upstairs. He froze in the hallway listening. Another sound followed, soft footsteps, then the faint click of something being set down. Then silence. By morning Tate was gone. No argument. No confrontation. Just absence. Chloe was the first to notice. She stood in the kitchen, staring at the counter. There was a note. One line. No name. Just a single sentence. Not elaborate, not emotional, just final in its simplicity. She didn't read it out loud at first. Noah came in behind her. What is it? Chloe hesitated, then slid it toward him. Noah looked down. A short message. Clear enough to understand the intent without needing explanation. He exhaled slowly. Brooke, when she arrived later that morning, read Chloe's face before she even saw the note. Mia followed behind her, immediately sensing the shift. He's gone. Chloe nodded once. Serena, quieter than the others, looked at the counter. Did he say where? Noah shook his head. Nothing. Chloe finally spoke, voice low. Just left that. Brooke picked up the note carefully, read it, and her expression tightened, not shock, just concern. Get the fuck out. That's not closure, she said. Mia frowned. That's withdrawal. Serena nodded slowly. He's removing himself from the situation entirely. Chloe looked down. Because of us. Brooke hesitated. Because of the way things escalated. Noah leaned against the counter, processing it quietly. Not anger. No confusion anymore. Just the sense that Tate had reached a point where staying felt harder than leaving. And whatever the letter meant, whatever history it carried, it had pushed him past what he could handle being around others for. The house felt different again. Not tense. Not loud. Just empty in a more final way than before. A week later, Noah woke up suddenly. Not from a nightmare, just that half-awareness you get when something in the house changes. For a second he didn't move. The room was dim, early morning light leaks in through the blinds of the spare room. Then he realized he wasn't alone in the bed. Tate was there. Fully asleep, on the edge of consciousness, breathing steady, one arm loosely resting near Noah's side like he'd sat down and just never made it back to his own room. Noah blinked, confused at first, then slowly relaxed when it registered. Tate hadn't ended up there in any strange way. It looked like he'd come in during the night and fallen asleep without thinking about it. Noah exhaled quietly, shifting slightly so he didn't wake him right away. For a moment he just watched him. Tate looked different asleep, less guarded. The tension that usually sat in his jaw wasn't there. No distance, no walls. Just exhaustion. Noah adjusted the blanket slightly, careful not to disturb him, then let out a soft breath. Man, he whispered to himself, you're really out. Downstairs the house was still. But there was a faint sense of movement in the background of the day starting, people waking, routines shifting. A few days after the conversation about Tate's memory, the house had settled into a strange, uneasy quiet. Noah told himself it was normal. People dropped difficult conversations, things went unresolved, life moved forward anyway. But something about Tate had shifted in the days since, not dramatically, not in a way someone else would have easily noticed, but enough that Noah felt it in the small moments. The way Tate paused before speaking. The way he watched Noah a second longer than necessary, as if checking whether he was still being interpreted correctly. That night Noah fell asleep first. The room was dark except for the faint glow from the hallway slipping under the door. He was half dreaming when he felt the mattress shift beside him. Tate had gone into bed quietly. Noah didn't open his eyes right away. He didn't need to. The weight of Tate settling in beside him was familiar, grounding, even. Tate rarely did it unless he was already overwhelmed in ways he didn't say out loud. Noah shifted slightly, instinctively making space. Tate exhaled softly. For a moment it was just that, breathing, stillness, the normal illusion of safety. Noah drifted again. Then about 30 minutes later, something changed. At first it was subtle, a faint vibration through the mattress like someone shifting in their sleep. Noah frowned without fully waking, assuming Tate had just rolled over. But the movement didn't stop. It grew unevenly. Jolting. Wrong. Noah's eyes snapped open. Tate, he said immediately, voice still rough with sleep. The bed was shaking now, not from movement but from something deeper, involuntary, violent. Tate's body was no longer resting. It was tightening, releasing, tightening again in a pattern that didn't belong to conscious motion. Noah reached for the lamp and flicked it on. The room was filled with harsh yellow light. Tate was already seizing. Noah's chest tightened instantly, adrenaline cutting through sleep like ice water. Hey, I've got you, he said, more to himself than anything. Tate's body jerked hard against the mattress, limbs pulling in unpredictable directions. Noah moved quickly but carefully, wrapping his arms loosely around him, not to restrain but to keep him from rolling off the bed or striking the frame. "Tate, I'm here," Noah said again, steadying his voice. "You're okay, you're okay." Tate didn't respond. His body was caught in a rhythm that didn't belong to him anymore. Noah guided him gently onto his side as the movements intensified, remembering enough from past episodes not to leave him flat on his back. He grabbed a cushion from behind and slid it under Tate's head, trying to keep him from hitting anything hard as his body convulsed. The sound was the worst part. Not loud, not dramatic, just uncontrolled breath and the occasional harsh gasp, interrupted by muscle contractions that stole coordination from every part of him. Blood and saliva began to gather at the corner of Tate's mouth. Noah's stomach tightened. "He bit his tongue," Noah muttered under his breath, not panicked but focused, anchored by the need to track, to observe, to not lose control of the moment even if everything else was out of control. He checked the clock. His hand was already moving toward his phone instinctively, but instead he just watched the time on the bedside screen. 3 minutes and counting. Tate's body continued to seize, the intensity peaking and then dipping in waves that felt endless even as Noah knew they weren't. "Come on," Noah said quietly, not as a command but as something closer to encouragement. "Almost there, you're almost through it." Tate didn't hear him. Or couldn't respond. Noah stayed close, one hand steady at Tate's shoulder, the other hovering near his arm in case he needed to adjust position again. He didn't try to hold him down, just kept him safe, kept him from hitting anything, kept him from rolling. The room felt too bright now, too real. Every second stretched. And then, it stopped. Not suddenly, but like a wave receding. Tate's body went slack in stages, the tension draining out of him in uneven releases. His breathing was heavy, broken, but present. Noah checked the time again. 3 minutes and 28 seconds, he whispered, more to himself than anything else. He leaned back slightly, exhaling for the first time since it began. Tate lay still on his side, eyes closed, face pale and damp. Exhaustion had already taken him in that immediate, consuming way it always did after seizures, like his body had spent all available energy and simply shut down in response. Noah stayed beside him, watching closely. "Tate," he said softly. No response. Only slow, uneven breathing. Noah sat back against the headboard, still keeping one hand nearby in case Tate moved again. His other hand reached for his journal on the nightstand. He opened it and wrote quickly, efficiently. Seizure 3:28 duration. Severe, tongue injury noted, postictal exhaustion is immediate. It wasn't clinical detachment, it was control, structure, something to hold onto when everything else didn't. Tate shifted slightly, a small unconscious movement, then settled again. Noah looked at him. The earlier conversation about memory echoed faintly in his mind, Tate insisting he couldn't trust what he remembered, that things blurred, that truth fractured under stress. Noah understood that now, in a way he hadn't wanted to. Because whatever Tate believed about his past, his present was undeniably real. And it was happening again. Noah stayed seated beside him, watching the rise and fall of Tate's chest slowly stabilize, listening to the quiet aftermath settle into the room like dust after impact. Tate's voice, when it finally came later, hours or minutes, Noah couldn't tell, was barely audible. "Sorry," he murmured, eyes still closed. Noah shook his head slightly. "Don't." Tate didn't respond. Just drifted back into exhaustion, as if consciousness itself was something he could only borrow for short intervals. Noah stayed awake longer. Not because he had to, but because after nights like this, sleep always felt like something that might not hold its shape if he let go too quickly. Noah left the bedroom quietly, closing the door most of the way behind him, but not fully, just enough so he could still hear Tate's breathing if it changed. The hallway light felt too harsh after the dim room. He walked into the next room and shut the door, leaning against it for a second before pulling out his phone. His hands were steadier than he felt. He scrolled on his phone until he found Andrew's number. It rang twice. Then a rustle, a pause, a fumbling sound like someone reaching across a nightstand in the dark. "Hello," Andrew's voice was thick with sleep. Noah glanced back toward the hallway instinctively, lowering his voice anyway. Hey, sorry to wake you. There was a pause on the other end, then the faint click of glasses being put on. It's fine, Andrew said more clearly now. What's going on? Noah exhaled slowly. He had a really bad seizure. That got Andrew fully alert. Tate, Andrew asked. Yes, Noah said. It lasted about 3.5 minutes. He's okay now, he's just completely wiped out, but it was intense. A short silence followed. Then Andrew asked carefully, was anything different tonight, any trigger you noticed? Noah hesitated, leaning his head back against the wall. That's what I'm trying to figure out. We talked a few days ago about the teacher, the letter, and his memory. It wasn't a good conversation. I think it stuck with him more than he let on. Another pause. Then Noah added quieter, and there's Chloe's situation too. The intervention, the pressure around that. I don't know if it's all stacking or if one thing tipped it over. Andrew sighed faintly on the other end. That's possible. Noah frowned slightly. You're not surprised. I'm not surprised he had an episode after stress, Andrew corrected gently. But Noah, Tate doesn't have epileptic seizures. Noah went still. What? Andrew's tone shifted into something more careful, more clinical, like he was trying to make sure Noah actually heard him. Tate has psychogenic non-epileptic seizures, PNES. They look exactly like epileptic seizures from the outside, but they're not caused by abnormal electrical activity in the brain. Noah blinked once slowly. What? They're involuntary, Andrew continued. But they're stress-induced, dissociative in a lot of cases. The body basically expresses psychological overload physically. Trauma, flashbacks, emotional triggers, high stress, things like that can bring them on. Noah pushed off the wall slightly, trying to process it. So you're saying it's not neurological? It's neurological in the sense that the brain is involved, Andrew said carefully, but it's not epilepsy. It doesn't show up the same way on the EEG. It behaves like a seizure, but the origin is different. Noah looked down the hallway toward the closed bedroom door. Tate had looked so real. So physically out of control. So beyond anything that felt like psychological. But he bites his tongue, Noah said quietly. I know, Andrew replied. That can happen. So can injuries, fatigue, and confusion afterward. The body doesn't distinguish between real and neurological in terms of movement patterns. It just executes the response. Noah rubbed a hand over his face slowly. So every time this happens. It's a stress response, Andrew said. Not something he's faking, not something he's consciously doing, but it is something his system is using to discharge overload it can't process another way. Noah went quiet. The word overload lingered longer than the rest. Andrew continued, softer now. What else did you both discuss? Noah hesitated again. The letter, the conversation. Tate shuts down emotionally when pressed, the way he'd gone quiet afterward like he was folding inward. We talked about his memory, Noah said finally. About something in his past he can't really reconstruct properly. He got overwhelmed, but he tried to push through it. Then tonight he just crashed. Andrew exhaled. That tracks. Noah frowned. That tracks. With PNES, Andrew said, it's not always immediate. Sometimes the stress accumulates. A conversation doesn't have to trigger it in the moment. It can destabilize things over days. The nervous system keeps processing it in the background until it tips over. Noah looked back down the hallway again. So it wasn't random. No, Andrew said gently, it rarely is. A pause. Then Noah asked quieter, so what do I do with that? Andrew didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was careful. You don't treat it like epilepsy in terms of fear of brain damage, but you do treat it seriously in terms of what's causing it. The seizures are the symptom, not the problem. Noah swallowed, and the problem is stress. More specifically, Andrew said, unprocessed stress, trauma that hasn't been integrated, situations that overwhelm his ability to cognitively handle them. Noah's grip tightened slightly on the phone. His mind went back to the letter again, the silent calls, Tate's fragmented certainty, the way memory seemed to shift depending on how closely he looked at it. Andrew's voice softened. Is he asleep now? Yes, Noah said. Good, Andrew replied. Let him rest. Don't try to process anything else with him tonight. Noah gave a small, humorless breath. That part won't be hard. A faint pause. Then Andrew added, Noah, I know this is a lot, but understanding what PNES is might actually help you separate what's a medical urgency and what's emotional processing. They can look terrifying, but the key is usually what happens around them, not during them. Noah stared down the hallway again. I think I'm starting to see that, he said quietly. Another pause. Then Andrew, call me if anything changes. I will. The call ended. Noah stood there for a moment longer, phone still in his hand, listening to the silence of the house. Then he turned back toward the bedroom. Toward Tate. And for the first time, the seizures didn't feel like isolated events anymore. They felt like reactions to something neither of them fully understood yet. Chloe didn't mean to be up. The house had that late-night stillness that made every small sound feel louder than it should have been, the creak of floorboards, the hum of pipes, the distant ticking of something mechanical she couldn't locate. She was halfway down the hallway when she noticed Noah's door wasn't fully closed. That alone made her pause. She wasn't the type to invade space. She told herself that. She respected boundaries, she respected privacy. But Tate had been married to her for a year. There were patterns she couldn't unsee anymore, even if she tried to rationalize them away. She stepped closer without meaning to. The door was cracked just enough. And what she saw made her stop completely. Tate was in Noah's bed. Asleep. Curled into him like it was the most natural thing in the world, arm thrown across Noah's torso, head resting too close, bodies occupying the same space in a way that wasn't casual, wasn't accidental, wasn't something she could easily label as just comfort without something inside her resisting it. Noah was awake. Sitting rigidly, one hand on Tate's shoulder like he was trying to keep him from slipping off or moving too abruptly in his sleep. Chloe's breath caught, but she didn't move. Her mind went strangely quiet first. Not emotional, not reactive. Just processing. Then the thoughts came in waves. He doesn't sleep next to me like that. Not once in months. Not even when I ask. She remembered nights after the wedding when they slept in separate rooms. Tate had sleep disorders and insomnia which prevented him from sleeping through the night. And now this. With Noah there, Tate has no issue sleeping through the night. Chloe's fingers curled slightly at her sides. She told herself to turn around. This wasn't her moment. This wasn't something she should be standing in the doorway watching. But her body didn't move yet. Her thoughts kept going anyway. He's not even fully aware of it, she tried to reason. He's asleep. This is just how he regulates, or whatever Noah calls it. It's not intentional. But that didn't fully settle the feeling in her chest. Because intention wasn't the only thing that mattered. Presence mattered. Comfort mattered. The question she couldn't avoid kept forming anyway, sharper each time she pushed it down. Why Noah, why him? Tate shifted slightly in his sleep, tightening his grip around Noah like a reflex. Noah adjusted immediately, steadying him without waking him. That motion, so practiced, so familiar, made something in Chloe's stomach tighten. Not jealousy in the simple sense. Something more complicated. Something closer to displacement. She took a slow step back into the hallway but still didn't leave. Her mind started filling in the blanks she didn't want it to fill. Tate trusts him more when he's unconscious than he trusts me when he's awake. That thought stung more than she expected. Because it wasn't about romance in the obvious sense. It was about access. About emotional proximity. About who got to be close when the defenses were gone. Chloe swallowed, forcing herself to breathe normally. It's not what it looks like, she told herself again. But the problem was, it didn't matter what it looked like. It mattered what it felt like watching it. She thought about their wedding. 5 months ago, Tate had looked composed then, controlled, careful, like he was stepping into something he understood only partially but agreed to anyway. She had thought time would close the distance. That familiarity would build intimacy. That sleeping next to your spouse would become natural eventually. But instead the distance had stayed. And now she was standing outside a room watching him choose unconscious closeness with someone else instead. Her throat tightened slightly. Not angry yet. Something quieter. Hurt, trying not to become angry. From inside the room, Noah spoke softly. "I've got you," he murmured, not to her but to Tate. "You're okay." That sentence landed differently than she expected. Not romantic. Not explicit. Worse in a way. Familiar. Like something practiced. Chloe looked away for a moment, blinking once. Her internal voice shifted again. "He's not doing anything wrong, neither of them is." But another voice immediately followed it. "Then why does it feel like I'm the outsider in my own marriage?" She stepped back fully into the hallway now. The door stayed open just enough for the light to spill out. For a second she considered going in. Saying something. Asking questions. Demanding explanations she wasn't sure she was ready to hear. But she didn't. Instead, she turned toward the bathroom and walked away slowly, her steps quiet but heavier than before. Behind her the door remained open. And Chloe couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was happening between Tate and Noah wasn't something that had started tonight. It was something that had been forming long before she ever walked into the picture. And she was only just beginning to understand she might not be part of its center at all. Chloe didn't sleep much. The bathroom light had stayed on longer than it needed to. She'd stood there longer than she should have, staring at her own reflection like it might rearrange itself into something that made the night feel less real. By morning she had settled on something close to clarity, but not peace. Clarity was worse. Because clarity meant she could name what she saw. And what she saw was simple, even if she didn't like the simplicity of it. Tate didn't reach for her. Not like that. Not instinctively. Not even when he was asleep and supposedly unguarded. He reached for Noah. That thought followed her down the hallway as she walked back toward Noah's room. The house was quieter in daylight but no less tense. It was the kind of quiet that made everything feel paused, like the air itself was waiting for someone to speak first. Chloe stopped outside Noah's door. It was closed now. That made something in her chest tighten. She knocked once. No answer immediately. She knocked again, sharper this time. A few seconds later, footsteps. The door opened. Noah stood there, hair slightly disheveled, shirt creased, expression already alert in the way of someone who hasn't fully slept but is trained to function anyway. He looked at her and immediately knew this wasn't casual. "Chloe," he said carefully, "what's going on?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked past him. "Is he awake?" she asked. Noah's posture shifted slightly. "Tate." "Yes," she said. "No," Noah replied, "he's still asleep." Chloe nodded once, like that confirmed something she didn't want confirmed. "I saw him last night," she said. Noah didn't react immediately, just watched her carefully. Chloe continued, voice controlled, "In here." Silence. Noah exhaled slowly through his nose. "Chloe. I saw him sleeping on you," she cut in. The words hung there. Noah didn't deny it. That alone made her chest tighten again. "I didn't want to assume anything," she said, quieter now but still firm, "so I waited." Noah stepped slightly into the doorway, closing it a little behind him, not defensive but controlled. "He had a seizure last night," Noah said. Chloe blinked. "I know." Noah studied her for a moment. "So you saw that and still came here like this?" "I saw my husband in bed with another man," she replied immediately. That landed between them sharply. Noah didn't flinch but his expression tightened. "That's not what it was," he said. Chloe let out a short, humorless breath. "It didn't look like anything." Noah paused. Then more carefully, "He came in here during the seizure. He was disoriented. He wasn't fully awake when he settled down. He didn't even realize where he was at first." Chloe folded her arms. "And then what?" He just stayed. Noah hesitated. "Yes." Chloe stared at him for a long moment. Then she said very quietly, "He doesn't stay with me." That sentence changed the temperature of the conversation. Noah didn't respond immediately. Chloe continued, voice steadier now but more pointed. "He won't sleep next to me, not once, not even when I ask, but he ends up in your bed after a seizure and just stays there." Noah's jaw tightened slightly. "This isn't about preference." "What is it about then?" she asked immediately. Noah exhaled, looking briefly down the hallway before meeting her eyes again. "Regulation," he said, "safety, familiarity during post-seizure confusion." Chloe shook her head slightly. "You're explaining it like I'm supposed to be fine with it." I'm explaining it because it's what happened, Noah replied. A pause. Then Chloe said more slowly, do you understand how that feels from where I'm standing? Noah didn't answer immediately. Because he did understand. But understanding didn't make it simpler. I'm not doing anything inappropriate with him, Noah said carefully. Chloe's eyes narrowed slightly. That's not what I'm accusing you of. Noah studied her. Then what are you accusing me of? He asked. Chloe hesitated. That was the first crack in her certainty. She looked away briefly, then back. I'm accusing you of being the only place he actually relaxes, she said. Noah went still. Chloe continued, voice quieter now but sharper underneath. I'm accusing you of his choosing you without even being conscious of it. I'm accusing you of being the person he reaches for when he's not thinking and me being the person he avoids when he is. Silence. Noah didn't interrupt. Chloe swallowed, then added, and I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that. That honesty shifted something in the air. Noah's voice softened slightly. Chloe, Tate has PNES. What happened last night wasn't him choosing anything. It was his nervous system crashing after a seizure. He wasn't making reliable decisions in that state. I know that, she said quickly. I'm not talking about last night like it's isolated. Noah frowned slightly. Then what are you talking about? Chloe hesitated again. Then more quietly. I'm talking about all of it. That hung there. Noah stayed quiet. Chloe looked at him directly now. He doesn't come to me when he's overwhelmed. He doesn't sleep next to me when he's calm. He doesn't, she stopped, exhaling sharply. He doesn't choose closeness with me. A pause. Then softer. But he does with you. Noah didn't respond immediately. Because denying it would be dishonest. But agreeing with it would be worse. Finally, he said carefully, it's not the kind of closeness you think it is. Chloe let out a short breath. It never is it? Noah's expression tightened slightly. That's not fair. Chloe nodded once, maybe not. Silence again. Longer this time. From inside the room there was a faint sound, Tate shifting in sleep. Both of them glanced toward it instinctively. Chloe's voice lowered. I'm not asking you to fix him, she said. Noah looked back at her. I'm asking you to see what this is doing to my marriage, she continued. Because I don't think you're the problem, I think the space around you two is the problem. That was the closest she had come to numbing it without accusation. Noah nodded slowly, but his expression stayed guarded. I hear you, he said. Chloe studied him for a moment longer. Then she said quietly, I don't know what happens next in this. Neither did he. And for the first time, that uncertainty felt shared instead of one-sided. Chloe stepped back slightly. I'm going to go, she said. Noah nodded once. She paused before leaving. Then added almost to herself. I just don't want to become someone he only notices when he wakes up. Chloe had already turned toward the hallway when it happened. At first she thought she had imagined it. A small shift behind her, fabric moving, a quiet sound like someone repositioning in sleep. Noe, Tate mumbled in his sleep. Then Noah's voice low, surprised. Hey, Tate. Chloe stopped. Slowly she turned back. Tate was still mostly asleep. That was the strange part. His eyes weren't fully open, his face slack with exhaustion from the seizure the night before. But his arm had moved with certainty, an automatic motion like muscle memory had taken over where awareness wasn't fully online. He had grabbed Noah. Not aggressively. Not forcefully. Just firmly. Like locating something familiar in the dark without needing to see it. And he had pulled Noah down onto the bed. Noah didn't fight it, not really. He adjusted immediately, like this wasn't new, like his body already knew how to respond without escalating it. Tate, Noah said again, quieter this time, you're asleep. Tate didn't answer. Instead he shifted closer. Chloe watched from the doorway, frozen in place now, not moving forward, not leaving either. Tate settled with his head against Noah's chest. Like it was the most natural place in the world. Like he had done it 1,000 times. His arm stayed draped across Noah's torso, not restraining, just anchoring. His breathing, which had been uneven a moment ago, started to slow almost imperceptibly. Noah exhaled softly. It's okay, Noah murmured, not to Chloe, not really to Tate either, just into the space between them. he does this sometimes. Chloe didn't respond. She just watched. Tate's head turned slightly, adjusting until his ear was directly over Noah's chest. Listening. Chloe noticed it immediately. The stillness that followed wasn't just sleep. It was a regulation. Like Tate's entire nervous system had found a rhythm outside of his own body. Noah's hand lifted slightly, resting carefully near Tate's shoulder, not holding him down, not pushing him away, just there. Chloe's throat tightened, but she didn't interrupt. Noah finally spoke again, softer. It helps him sleep, he said. Chloe's eyes flicked to him. Noah met her gaze briefly, then looked back down at Tate. He listens to my heartbeat, he added. He can't help it, it just settles him. Chloe didn't move. Didn't blink for a moment longer than she meant to. Something in her expression shifted, not anger now, not even jealousy in its sharp form. More like recognition of a pattern she had been circling without fully nomming. Noah continued carefully. I've helped him sleep like this for years, since we were kids, before any of this, before marriage, before anything complicated, when he gets overwhelmed, when he has seizures, when his mind doesn't settle, this is what works. He hesitated, then added quieter. He's just trying to feel safe. Chloe's gaze stayed on Tate. On the way, his body had relaxed completely now, like all remaining tension had been siphoned out of him and replaced with something simpler. Rest. Not emotional connection. No choice. Rest. But still, it was intimate in a way that didn't fit neatly into any category she wanted to accept. Not romantic. Not sexual. But undeniably close. Chloe finally spoke, voice low. He doesn't do that with me. Noah didn't respond immediately. Because he couldn't deny it. Chloe's eyes stayed on Tate as she continued. He doesn't fall asleep on me, he doesn't look for me when he's overwhelmed, he doesn't, she paused slightly, choosing the words carefully, use me like that. Noah shifted slightly on the bed, still careful not to disturb Tate. It's not using, he said gently. Chloe nodded once, but it wasn't agreement, it was an acknowledgement. I know, she said. A pause. Then softer. I just don't know what role I'm supposed to have in this. That question hung in the room longer than anything else had. Noah looked at her fully now. Tate remained asleep against him, breathing steadily. Noah spoke carefully. You're his wife, he said. Chloe let out a short, almost humorless breath. That's supposed to mean something. It does, Noah replied. But even as he said it, there was an awareness in his voice that it didn't answer everything she was really asking. Chloe looked at Tate again. Not at Noah this time. At him. In the way he had unconsciously sought stability from someone else without awareness, without intention, without even waking up fully to make a decision about it. Her voice lowered. It feels like I'm watching a pattern I don't know how to interrupt, she said. Noah didn't argue. Because she wasn't wrong about the pattern. Just about its meaning. After a moment, Chloe stepped back into the hallway again. This time more slowly. Not leaving in anger. Not storming off. Just processing. Before she fully disappeared, she looked back once more. Tate was still asleep against Noah's chest. Completely calm now. And Noah was still, one hand steady, keeping him there without pushing him away. Noah would give anything to be Tate's wife or partner. He had dreamed of sharing Tate's name since elementary school, not for status, money, or privilege, but because the man who slept partially on top of him every night for 2 decades was the man he loved. Chloe's final thought wasn't loud. It wasn't even fully formed yet. But it was beginning to take shape. He doesn't belong to me in the way I thought he would. And worse than that. He doesn't even belong to himself when he's like this. Then she turned and walked away. Chloe didn't go home right away. She sat in her car for a long time after leaving Tate's parents' house, hands still on the steering wheel even though the engine was already off. The air inside the car felt too still, like it was holding onto everything she hadn't said out loud yet. When she finally drove, it wasn't toward home. It was toward somewhere familiar. Somewhere she didn't have to explain everything from the beginning. By the time she pulled up outside her friend's place, her chest felt tight in that way that meant she had already replayed the night too many times. The door opened before she even knocked. Okay, one of her friends said immediately, looking at her face. Something happened. Chloe exhaled sharply, yeah. Inside, there were already two other women sitting on the couch, friends from before the marriage, the kind of people who knew her well enough to recognize when she was holding something in too tightly. One of them leaned forward. It's Tate, isn't it? Chloe gave a short laugh that didn't have humor in it. When is it not? That got their attention immediately. She sat down slowly, like her body was only now catching up to her thoughts. For a moment she didn't speak. Then it all came out in pieces. He had another seizure last night, Chloe said. Concern immediately shifted across their faces. How bad, one asked. Bad, Chloe replied, 3 minutes, maybe more. Noah timed it. That name made one of the friends tilt her head slightly. Noah was there. Chloe nodded. Silence followed that. Then Chloe continued, voice tightening as she spoke. And after, I went to check on him this morning. Her friend's expression shifted, and Chloe paused, then said it anyway. He was in Noah's bed. A beat of silence. One of the women blinked. Wait, what? Chloe nodded again, like it was normal. Another friend leaned forward more slowly now, like sleeping there. Yes, Chloe said, like he just ended up there and Noah was used to it. That word used to it made something in the room shift. Not an accusation yet. Just recalibration. Chloe continued, voice lower now. He didn't come to me after the seizure, she said. He didn't look for me, he didn't even call for me, he went straight to Noah. Brooke frowned. Isn't Noah like his friend from way back? Chloe nodded, since they were kids. That landed differently. Mia tilted her head. Okay, but seizures are disorienting, people latch onto whoever feels safe. Chloe let out a short breath. That's what Noah said too. And Serena asked carefully. Chloe looked down at her hands. And apparently, she said slowly, this has been happening for years. That got quieter. Brooke asked more cautiously now, like, emotionally. Chloe shook her head. Physically, Tate falls asleep on him, uses him as a pillow, listens to his heartbeat. There was a pause. Mia said slowly, that's not nothing. Chloe gave a humorless half-smile. Yeah, I noticed. Serena shifted slightly, but you said it's after seizures. Yes, Chloe said immediately, but it's not just that, it's like, he goes there instinctively. Silence again. Then the conversation started to shift slowly, like a current changing direction. You sure there isn't something deeper going on with Noah? Mia asked carefully. Chloe shook her head immediately. No, I don't think it's like that. But even as she said it, her tone didn't fully commit. Brooke leaned back slightly. So what, he just prefers him when he's overwhelmed? Chloe hesitated. That was the part she couldn't quite stop thinking about. I don't know, she admitted. Serena said, that's kind of strange though. Yeah, Mia added, I mean, you're his wife. That word landed heavier than the rest. Chloe nodded once, exactly. The room went quiet again. Brooke spoke more slowly, choosing words carefully. Sometimes people attach to whoever feels most regulated to them, she said, not necessarily romantic, just safety association. Chloe looked up at that. Serena continued, like, if Noah has been the consistent one during medical episodes for years, his brain might just file him under safe zone. It's automatic. Chloe's expression tightened slightly. So what, I just don't qualify as safe? That's not what she said, Serena interjected quickly. But the idea was already sitting there. Uncomfortable. Unresolved. Chloe leaned forward slightly. He won't even sleep next to me, she said quietly. Not normally, not when he's fine, not when I ask, but he'll end up physically wrapped around Noah like it's the only place his body knows how to settle. That sentence changed the room again. Not into gossip yet. In concern. Mia spoke more softly now. Chloe, how long has it been like that? Chloe paused. Then answered honestly. Our entire relationship, she said, long enough that I shouldn't be surprised anymore. Another silence. Then one of them said carefully, have you talked to him about it? Chloe gave a short, tired laugh. How do you even start that conversation? Hey, why do you sleep better with your buddy than with your wife? No one had a good answer to that. Brooke said more gently, it might not mean what it looks like. Chloe looked at her. I know, she said. But she didn't sound convinced. Then quieter. It just feels like I'm trying to be part of something he already built with someone else. That sat in the room longer than anything else. Mia finally spoke more cautiously now. Do people talk about it? Chloe looked up. What do you mean? I mean, she hesitated, like outside of you guys, do people notice? Chloe shook her head. No, it's not like that, it's not public. But even as she said it, she realized something uncomfortable. People might not see it directly. But patterns like that don't stay invisible forever. Not in families. Not in friendships. Not in marriages where someone keeps choosing safety somewhere else. Brooke sighed quietly. It sounds less like drama and more like attachment that never got reorganized after childhood. Chloe looked down again. That phrase stuck more than she wanted it to. Never got reorganized. Because that was exactly what it felt like. Not betrayal. Not romance. Something older. Something that predated her entirely. Finally, Chloe leaned back against the couch. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with it, she said again. This time no one rushed to answer. Because for the first time in the conversation, it wasn't a simple story anymore. It was a system none of them fully understood yet. Tate walked downstairs for breakfast like it was any other morning. The house was quiet in that early, pale way, too still to feel fully awake yet. He moved slowly, still carrying the dull heaviness of recovery from the seizure the night before, his body lagging slightly behind his thoughts. He reached the kitchen and paused, staring at the counter for a second like he'd forgotten what he came for. Tate sat quietly for a moment, his eyes fixed on the pattern of the tablecloth. The words landed harder than he expected. He had prepared himself for anger, for accusations, for another argument, but not for the quiet sadness in Chloe's voice. Do you even want this? Chloe asked again, softer this time. Do you want to be married to me? Tate looked up at her. Chloe. No, she interrupted, shaking her head. I need you to actually answer me, because lately it feels like I'm the only person fighting for us. Tate swallowed, glancing toward the doorway where Noah had disappeared. That's not true. Then why does it feel true? Chloe asked. My friends aren't married, but they have partners who call them just to hear their voice. They make plans together, they laugh together, they touch each other without it feeling like they're forcing themselves to. Her voice cracked slightly. And I'm sitting here eating oatmeal at a table with my husband, feeling like I'm waiting for permission to be part of his life. Tate looked away. Chloe leaned back in her chair, studying him. Do you know what the worst part is? I don't even feel like I'm married to my husband anymore. I feel like I'm living with my mother-in-law. Tate's eyebrows pulled together. Chloe. You are, she said, tears forming in her eyes. You're always worried, always watching, always taking care of everything. You tell me what's best for me, you protect me, you manage everything, but you don't let me be your wife. The words hung between them. I'm supposed to be your partner, she continued. Not someone you have to take care of, not someone standing outside your life looking in. Tate's expression softened, but he struggled to find the right words. I never wanted you to feel that way. But I do, Chloe whispered, and I don't know how much longer I can pretend I don't. Tate looked down at his hands. For once, he didn't have an argument, he didn't have a solution, he didn't have a way to fix it with money or power or control. He just had to listen. I'm sorry, he finally said. Chloe looked surprised by the simplicity of the answer. I don't know how to do this, Tate admitted. I know how to protect people, I know how to solve problems, I know how to carry everything myself, but I don't know how to let someone stand beside me. Chloe's expression softened, but the hurt remained. I don't need you to carry me, Tate. She reached across the table but stopped before touching him. I need you to let me hold your hand. I'm sorry if I'm just a miserable man, Tate said quietly, still staring down at the tablecloth. I'm not good at relationships, I'm not good at sharing parts of myself, I'm not good at being vulnerable or communicating what I'm feeling, it's not how I'm wired. He let out a slow breath. But I am trying. Chloe nodded, her expression softening, but the sadness in her eyes didn't disappear. I know you are, Tate, she said. I do, I know you're trying harder than you ever have before, I see that. She paused, choosing her words carefully. But sometimes trying isn't enough. Tate looked up at her. I don't want our relationship to feel like something we have to constantly repair, Chloe continued. I want there to be ease between us. I want to feel like we're on the same side. I don't want to feel like I have to battle and fight just to have a place in your life. Tate looked away again. Honestly, Chloe said softly, if our relationship had been like this when we were dating, I don't know if I would have stayed. I would have been questioning whether we were even compatible. That one hurt. I want a mature, emotionally available man, she said. Someone who lets me know where he is emotionally. Someone who doesn't make me sit there wondering, where the hell is he? What is he feeling? Does he even want me here? Tate opened his mouth, but Chloe kept going. And that's the part I don't understand. Because before we were married, before everything became complicated, we were close. Her voice lowered. Even before we broke up, we had something. Maybe we weren't the couple who talked every second of every day. Maybe we weren't perfect, but I never felt like I was standing outside your life. She looked around the room. Now it feels like being in the same room with me is the last place you want to be. Tate's face tightened. That's not true. Then help me understand what is true, Chloe said. Because from where I'm sitting, it feels like you wanted me when I was far away. You wanted the idea of us, but now that I'm actually here, now that I'm your wife, you don't know what to do with me. Tate looked down, the words hitting a place he didn't want to acknowledge. I'm not trying to push you away, he said. But you are, Chloe replied gently, maybe not intentionally, maybe you don't even realize you're doing it, but you are. Silence filled the room. For once, Tate didn't defend himself, he didn't explain, he didn't turn it into a problem he could solve. He just sat there and listened. I don't want a perfect husband, Chloe whispered. I don't need you to suddenly become someone else, I just need to feel like you actually want to be here with me. Tate's eyes dropped. I do want to be here. Then let me feel that, Chloe said. Why the fuck did you marry me? Chloe asked. The question wasn't shouted, that was what made it worse. It came out exhausted, like she had been carrying it around for months and finally couldn't hold it anymore. Tate stayed silent, staring down at the tablecloth. If we're not going to be physically close and emotionally close, then honestly, Tate, Chloe shook her head, fighting back tears. I could go down to the dog pound, pick out a stray, and it would probably be more affectionate toward me than you've been our entire relationship. Tate's jaw tightened, but he didn't look up. I'm not saying that to hurt you, she continued quickly. I'm not judging you, I don't want you to feel ashamed or like I'm attacking you, I'm trying to explain how this feels from my side. She placed her hands around her oatmeal bowl, looking down. Even if that's not your intention, the result is the same. The way I experience you is that I'm alone. The room went quiet. I'm not even 25 years old, Tate, Chloe whispered, and I'm lonely. That finally made him look up. People aren't supposed to feel lonely in the first year of their marriage. This is supposed to be the honeymoon phase. This is supposed to be when we're obsessed with each other, Tate.